No plan, no backup, no choice. We are the Spy-Fi guys, and this is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Hello and welcome back to the Spy-Fi guys, where we cover spy fact, spy fiction, and everything in between. I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And today we have a guest star joining us for our next installment of the Mission Impossible series.
Heck yeah, I am the impossible mission.
Welcome back, Jay.
Yes.
So Jay is our Mission Impossible expert / super fan, along with Christian. He's covered all of the Mission Impossible ones so far, and he is back for number 4, Ghost Protocol.
Am I the expert or just old?
And you're also, unfortunately, were just not able to join us for our Dead Drop episode, which released last week on Dead Reckoning Part 1. And if I sound a little hoarse today, it's because we recorded it last night, and I spent a lot of time yelling at Zach. So tune in to find out.
I appreciate this. I appreciate this because I'm pretty sure I yelled at Zach the other night as well.
It's Mission Impossible season, though. A new Mission Impossible just came out, so we are going to do the next step in our coverage of the series.
Yeah. So, what is all of your experience with Ghost Protocol?
I have watched, I think this is the 4th time I have watched it, seriously. I've definitely watched it 1 or 2 other times, half asleep or passed out. Seriously, sat through and wanted to watch it. Probably this is the 4th time for me.
So for me, I was aware that there were these Mission Impossible movies, and for some random reason, I decided to see 4 in a theater, I believe. And as soon as the music started, I was like, oh yeah, the music, like from the show. And then it just got better and better. So I remember really liking it, and it got me into the series, though I don't tend to rewatch movies that much. So me really coming back to watching it for this episode, I was like, does it hold up?
That was listeners, just so you know, I gave Zach the thumbs down and I was booing him silently.
Gee, it's the first 2 minutes.
I know
already.
As we all know, listeners, I'm a big fan of the franchise. I've been following it since the very beginning. It was the first one was the first PG-13 movie I ever saw, and I was kind of hyped for this. I was moderate because 3, upon viewing it at that time, kind of disappointed me. So I was like, I'll watch it, but I'm not really sure how it's gonna go. And then I have a bunch of friends back in Hawaii who they all got GoPros and started making these videos. This is back in 2011, so this is a whole big thing. They would make skateboarding, surfing, swimming videos. So they call themselves 1412 Film Factory, which is the name of their house. 1412, that was their street address.
I like that.
Anyway, so they were gonna call it the 1412 Film Factory Film Festival. And they were like, all right, we want to make a trailer to, show before movies. And they randomly called me up and said, hey, Christian, do you have any just random, videos of you doing James Bond things? I was like, maybe, but why? Is it, oh, well, we're going to, we want to edit together a trailer. So we're thinking about, just putting something into the Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Or we can film new stuff with me because I'm down to do that. So we did, and I will. So we made it. Yeah, we made a little trailer called Christian Impossible. Christian was my nickname amongst these friends for reasons why I will not get into.
Is it some kind of insult?
No, well, I guess I'll just tell the story.
You don't have to, whatever.
It's just kind of stupid. It's just they had one cousin younger cousin who had two front teeth missing at one point, and so he would pronounce things weird. So apparently my name Christian was pronounced by him as Christian, and
that's amazing.
I can see that.
Yeah, so
I was very curious about that when you sent me the link.
I will post this video to our social medias. Just listeners beware, this is made 12 years ago on not with just iMovie, so it is not the best quality, but it is funny. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing when I watched it, considering that was probably like 5 years after I started like doing movie edits and stuff like that. So like I was like, why is this so much better than the things I developed? I don't understand.
Oh,
Well, it was developed by the pros at 1412. Did they also do parkour, by the way?
no.
Wasn't 2011? That was when people were into parkour.
Around there. Actually, you know what? They
Give or take,
probably
yeah.
did. I don't.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my history with this movie. So, I guess that was aside. But yeah, so actually going into it because of making the little trailer, I was more hyped for it because I was like, oh, I want to see how the scenes that we acted out in the trailer actually played out in the movie. Like, I think my favorite scene from that little trailer we made was where had the gun reversal, and we did that with a bunch of my airsoft guns. I was like, I'm actually proud of that because that looked good.
It did look good. That was the best part.
It was so good because that also I was like, oh my god, if they didn't practice good trigger practices, oh my god, there's gonna be a welt on someone's forehead.
Oh no, I unloaded those before I did anything with those.
I was so concerned. I was like, I've seen so many bad productions of like miscellaneous things with like either airsoft guns or like paintballs, and then you're just like, oh yeah, you don't think anything of it, but that hurts when you get hit.
Oh yeah, especially if you're not expecting it.
Yeah, I was like, I've been hit by paintball guns from that range and been like, I had a welt for like a month and a half, and be like, oh no.
I was wanted to be very safe with those things.
Yeah, you don't want to pull an Alec Baldwin.
Ooh, oh.
Too soon?
Why? Not too soon, but why?
And also, he doesn't enter the franchise till the next film.
Hey, good call.
All right, so shall we get into this, Zach? Do you have our synopses?
Can I just say that, like, Zach and I have talked about this a couple of times once we decided that, again, I was going to be part of this. And Zach was like, isn't it blah, blah, blah? And I was like, oh, you bastard.
Okay.
So, like, no, because, like, it's Mission Impossible, it's typical stuff. But then, like, Zach also, when we were talked about it on Saturday at the theater, Zach was like, I haven't seen this in a while. Isn't it just blank? And I was like, are you mad? Did you not pay attention or take notes? And you were like, no, I didn't watch it yet. And I was like, oh, okay.
Just his reaction from before he watched. Okay.
Yeah, like his memory from that period.
Well,
and I was
listeners who have listened to the Dead Reckoning episode will know that Zach's memories of this franchise, other than the set pieces, are very slim.
Right.
Okay, so it's not just all right. No, we're not gonna. Well,
I've watched the movies when they first come out. So this was like how long did I say? 11 years
12
ago?
years ago.
12
yeah,
years ago.
fair.
I haven't seen it since.
All right.
All right. Now, if you're finished, Jay, do you have any poetry synopsis? Did you come up with anything?
I did. Now I'm trying to remember. It was. Oh shoot! Give me until the end. I have to come back to this.
Okay. All right. Well, here's mine. So first is my haiku. Ethan imprisoned. Ghost protocol in effect. Airbags save the day.
All right. I like it.
That's good.
Thank you. And then here's the limerick. There once was an agent named Hunt, and when danger he had to confront, with the world on the verge, he climbed on the Burj, performing one heck of a stunt.
It's pretty good. I was a little worried when you started with Hunt.
What? Did you think it was going to rhyme Hunt with something else?
Yeah. Okay. We are not a rated X podcast, Zach.
Brunt.
Yeah.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then here is the IMDb actual summary. The IMF is shut down when it's implicated in the bombing of the Kremlin, causing Ethan Hunt and his new team to go rogue to clear their organization's name.
So I have one more thing I want to say, and this is probably the film that I've visited the most locations from of the Mission Impossible franchise.
Every time something came up, because I watched it the last weekend, I was like, there's Christian somewhere probably there. Christian's probably there. Christian's text me from that spot.
You've been to the Kremlin?
Well, We'll get to it. But there's a lot of they filmed a lot in Vancouver and a lot in Prague. Yeah. So those are the two ones I have never been to Dubai. Would love to go at some point. I believe they also filmed in. There's one more place that I'm trying to think of. So anytime that there's a location that I've been to, I will point it out. So we start at a train station in what's supposed to be. Oh, yeah, this is the location that I couldn't remember. Where is it supposed to be?
Chennai, Bangalore, or the other two. And Prague, Moscow, Vancouver, Bangalore, Chennai, and Dubai.
Yeah, so it's filmed in Prague, but it's supposed to be Budapest.
Budapest, thank you. That's what I was. Yeah. This is a train station in Prague that I actually took the train into, which was really fun. But yeah, we start there. Sawyer from Lost, whose character's name I do not recall.
Right. Is Agent Holloway or Hardaway?
Holloway,
or
Holloway, Holloway, yes.
Yeah, who says my memory's bad? Eat it, you guys.
Well, you only saw this a couple
like a few hours ago.
There you go. That's why. So yeah, he's being chased. He runs off a building, throws an airbag behind him.
It's amazing.
So more. So not just one airbag, but two airbags save the day.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah. He thinks he's escaping, but then he gets shot by the assassin known as Sabine, who's played by Léa Seydoux, also featured in the James Bond franchise.
That's right.
Not Sabine from Star Wars.
No, not that Sabine. Sabine Moreau is her name.
Mm-hmm.
So we next go to a prison sequence where we find that Benji's in the field now. He's no longer a technician.
Yay! He deserved it.
And we also meet Agent Jane Carter, who's played by Paula Patton. There it is.
Thank you.
They're breaking out Ethan Hunt from prison, and Ethan Hunt is doing his best Cooler King from The Great Escape here, except instead of throwing a ball against a wall in his cell, he's got a rock that he has carved out over long periods of time, bouncing it off his cell.
Presumably with a spoon.
Did he carve it, or is it just
I think it's because
just
throwing
worn
it
down because he's been throwing it 50 times per every 5 minutes.
Yeah, but Great Escape, a movie that I want to cover in the future.
He's more hardcore than The Great Escape because he uses a rock and not a baseball. Yeah.
Benji hacks into the audio system of the prison and starts playing "Ain't That a Kick in the Head" by, is it Dean Martin?
Yes. So what I liked about this, so now in 2023, pop songs are so in vogue to put in movies. But in this one, there's actually a reason why they do it, which is to let Ethan know that they're helping him. Because you'll notice Ethan doesn't really react when he hears the fighting, but when he hears the music, his head kind of turns.
I agree. Yeah, that's it's a very clear thing.
It's a code phrase that he knows, and. Right. So he notices all the very particular prison doors are being opened, and I like for the first good 5 almost 10 minutes, you don't hear Ethan. He's just silent.
Oh,
and it's all by his body language, his portrayal, his face. It's so
It's not even that. It's the fact that you get roughly 20 seconds of Ethan, and no one sees that it's Ethan for the first probably about 15 minutes of this whole section, because you only see him laying down. There's someone throwing a rock, but everything else. So the door opens, and then you get the grimy ass guy woo, and then him by himself, and then everyone's screaming at him, and all this happens, and you just see this miscellaneous person throwing a rock. So probably 15 to 20 minutes, you have no idea that that's Ethan. The assumption is that, so when I first saw it, I thought the person that was being released initially was Ethan in a mask.
Interesting. That'd be a long time to wear a mask.
Right, but we don't know how long they've been there.
True, that's
right?
True.
And how good their whole this pat downs and all that stuff. So I initially thought, oh, that's Ethan. And then you just randomly see this guy throwing a rock against the wall. And I was like,
why are they focusing on him?
Why is this jerk throwing a rock? Okay, maybe this person is now going to save the one who's throwing the rock. I initially thought that was going to be the big bad.
Interesting.
Movies like to start with the bad guys.
Right? So I was like, oh, so Ethan's going to save him. and that's gonna be the big bad, and then all that thing. So like my mind was blown after the first
Ethan.
15 minutes of this movie. I was like, oh my god, what is happening?
Keeps you guessing.
Yeah. So we get a nice bit of comedy where Ethan is telling whoever is on the computer to open the door, and he doesn't know it's Benji, but they have a goodbye play. Somehow, without talking, they manage to have a goodbye play, which I love. But so has him open another door so he can go and rescue this other prisoner named Bogdan.
Classic Ethan Hunt. Even when he's being rescued, he still goes rogue.
Yeah, I like the fact that he runs away, stops, and is just like, and then he goes back and he knows. He knows. His name is big enough that he just has to stare at the camera, go, wave 2 fingers, and go, open that door, and just sits there and wait.
He also threatens him with a fist. It's not even like I'm going to punch. It's just
yeah, and then just like, why? Why aren't you listening to me? Do you not know who I am? Why are you being a Karen? Just open this door.
Yeah, Ethan knows they're here for him, and they're not leaving without him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To cover their escape, Benji also opens all the doors in the prison and basically starts a riot.
Yeah, those poor prison guards. I guess their innocents being hurt and/or killed. But this team is a little bit more hardcore than the ones later.
Yeah, and so they escape through a tunnel underneath, and then we get, I think, my favorite intro. This is the first time in the film series, where the title sequence is led into by the actual film, where he actually lights a physical fuse.
Yeah,
and says, "Light the fuse."
It made me feel so good.
It's such a great title sequence as well. So I just loved it.
And because you see initially when they're in the tunnels, you see them moving around. So it's not just the generic fuse being lit. You see them having to traverse various tunnels. So you see it split and stuff. So it's very
and then you
practical.
see the fuse as they start showing other scenes from the movie, which are from different angles. And we'll see it later as well. You'll see the fuse moving around them too in various ways. It's just so well done.
It was so good because prior to that, it was just very typical.
I mean, we talked about MI3 doesn't even have. And even MI2, they don't even have the scenes of
none of that.
parts of that. It's really only Mission Impossible 1 where they did that. And
yeah,
it's a TV show.
And the TV show, so you have initially in the TV show, and then you're one and two. One and two, you get the general fuse, but this is the first time you see it wave through tunnels, and specifically because the way they're setting it up, and in the movie, you see them walking through various tunnels and laying it out. It's oh, now I understand why this is part of the introduction. And now, as a viewer, you see, I am now fully engrossed because of that.
Yeah. So we go to them in a white unmarked van, because of course, and they're handing off. But I like how they hand off Bogdan to this other van. They just stop briefly. He gets knocked out and falls right into the other van.
Hello, friend. We are best friends, right?
I definitely thought he wasn't coming back, by the way.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So actually, he is also in the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yes.
He is the guy that what's his face?
What is his name?
Shaw.
Hobbs and Shaw?
Yeah, well, yeah. Shaw is beating up a guy. Well, is punching a punching bag, and it turns out to be there's a guy inside of that, and that guy inside there is Bogdan.
IMDb specifically labels him as bad guy.
Bad guy.
Bad guy, not bad guy.
Oh, bad guy.
Bad guy.
That's great. Anyways, so we get the full story of the mission from the beginning. They're in the Budapest train station, although it's really the old section of the Prague train station. They're tracking this file, and Agent Hanaway gets killed, and Sabine stole the file. Turns out the file had nuclear codes, and they're suspected being stolen by a nuclear extremist codenamed Cobalt.
This is all in the briefing, right?
No, that's before the briefing.
Pre-briefing.
Pre-briefing.
A nice, straightforward plot. I like that.
So they drive to where the telephone booth, where Ethan is getting his mission briefing, which is in Vancouver. I've been in that alleyway or that underpass. I will be posting all of these photos to our social media as well after this episode gets posted, so you can see all the places that I got to go, which was really cool just to be in these locations. So yeah, this is in Vancouver. We also get the first hint about something happening to Julia, that they broke up.
This was wild. They say an unsanctioned hit.
Yeah, so the mission that Ethan gets is to infiltrate the Kremlin to uncover Cobalt's identity before Cobalt can get into those files and destroy them himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I like here that the self-destruct is not quite working, so he has to nudge it, do some acoustic or percussive maintenance.
Right.
Yeah,
which is great because it sets up the whole fact that they're
technology is not
the best. Yeah, right. And at this point in history, technology isn't like the technology we have right now.
No.
You expect, I have an iPhone, it's going to be this thing. It's going to always make this happen. But at this point in history, technology is rapidly developing.
Mm-hmm.
So you never understand how good it's going to be. And as an engineer, someone who grew up and built stuff, it's I always tell, when I helped with Zach with his computer, I'm like, might be problems I can't predict, I don't know. But it's today you don't get that. But back then, it's you never know.
On the flip side of that, though, this is also around the time of the first iPhone, and this is the first time you see
that's the problem.
But I thought what was funny is you never see those things fail.
Well, yeah, not with a corporate sponsorship.
Well, yeah, and most likely due to Brad Bird's connections to Pixar and Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
That's the joke I always make about driverless cars. Where it's how often does your computer fail for no reason?
All right, so we get to the Kremlin.
Choral music. Classic Russian choral music.
It's very, very Hunt for Red October. So this part here, at least the courtyard, and actually most of it, actually Prague Castle, which I've been to. So Ethan and Benji are in disguise, but not a full mask. Ethan's got a fake mustache and a fake nose. It looks pretty good. That looks like the general he's supposed to be. Agent Carter, or I'm just calling her Jane because Agent Carter just makes you think of Haley Atwell, who not there yet.
Well, we'll just leave that alone for a second.
So Jane is disguised as a tourist, and they've got some trouble at the security checkpoint because here we go. Actually, this is the one time where you see not the iPhone failing, but something with the iPhone not quite working, where the photos to get their IDs are not uploaded correctly. Mm-hmm. I like how they bluff the guy.
It was very practical, which I appreciate.
I also did you notice that he introduces the guard introduces himself as a major, and then when he messes up, he says, "Oh, it is you made a big mistake.
Run it again,
private Igor."
Yeah, run it again, private. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now he's instantly demoted.
Yeah, there was some neat spy stuff. I liked Benji tapping his foot to let him know that it was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So next we get one of my favorite parts here with the projector screen. So they have this giant screen that goes across the entire hallway, the camera that is showing what's on the other side of it. And it also is motion tracking the guard.
Eye tracking specifically. Yeah, eye tracking, which is great.
Because, his perspective is going to change depending on where he's looking.
The fact that it's eye tracking rather than head tracking, which is beyond the technology at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And beyond
now, maybe?
Well, no.
No. Now you can do it.
We have eye tracking devices right now. Yeah. That concept of technology at that point is not what we expect, because you expect you're okay, head tracking, eye tracking makes sense, but the fact that you now see it, understanding okay, if it's lower and you see it higher, you have to reposition all that. It was such a revelation for me as someone who does photography and camera work, going, oh, it's not just where the head is. It's the fact that you have to understand where the eye is looking and gazing. So head might be, say, 5 feet up, but the
Mhm.
eye is looking even further up. So now you have to readjust all those angles. That just blew my mind.
Mm.
Because it also, at the same time, understanding like where like the projector screen, right? It expanded, and I was like, I own projector screens. I understand hydraulics. There's gonna be a gap at the corners, and
Yeah,
then
it had to
being
be that exact size, and yeah.
well, it made me rethink about like what in the prior scene where they're talking about like the setup and like being very precise and all that stuff. I was like, they understand, they knew the assignment, right?
hmm
But then at the same time, it's also like, how good do you have to be? Like, and it's based off of a tablet, which is
Oh, at
ridiculous.
that time, a tablet running that technology, that is not happening.
And the fact that they had to put it in this little weird tray at the bottom, I was like, okay, so it's not Bluetooth, but it's not also synced properly. What is happening?
Yeah.
So it's great. This is one of the
Yeah.
things I remembered from the movie 12 years ago. But watching it back, I was like, couldn't they just have asked the guard or just like told the guard, hey, we're going into the archive? Like,
What?
why did they need all that? There's only one guard. They could have even just tranquilized him.
What? Christian, help me.
Okay, you remember their whole thing is get in, get out, zero residual presence. That's what's
Uh,
supposed to happen. So no one should even remember them. So no, they're not going to talk. Yeah.
So in the prior scene, okay, so I think, and now I figure I understand where you're coming from. In the prior scene, when they're coming in,
mhm.
they understand it's a general, but they don't know which general it is because
Yeah.
they see the stripes, they understand it, and so that's why they're like, "We need to see your ID. We need to verify." And they say you should know who your boss is, right?
Mhm.
And so like it's because they don't actually recognize Ethan. Like they don't recognize the actual
They just
general in front of
recognize,
them.
they just know the stripes and know, oh, I should be paying attention to this person.
Whereas
And
the guard will
not Christian.
probably know the general.
Mm. And I mean, you don't want to take that chance, really. You just
Yeah.
want to,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah. It's not even just yeah, it literally it's just like someone is above me. I understand the rank. They now have a conscript, whatever, and but I have to
mhm.
do my job.
So
So
there you go.
Yeah. So, anyways,
maybe if I
yeah.
screw up, I might get a promotion for being very diligent.
Mhm.
Yay.
So they use a screen to get past the door in the hallway, which leads to the archive room. They get into the archives, and very quickly they find that the missing data tapes
The
they're
tapes.
missing.
Ooh,
God
so there's
bless that they're actual tapes
Yeah,
with
yeah.
magnetic ribbon. I was
But
like,
yeah, so any clue to Cobalt's identity is gone, and as soon as he finds that, someone is piggybacking on their comms, but also cross transmitting it, so it's heard on both their comms and also all the radios of the Russians.
so it's a trap.
it's a
And
trap.
whoever is on the radio piggybacking their comms is making it sound like they're about to detonate something. So they
Right.
very
Mhm.
quickly abort. And I love this part where Ethan quick changes from his Russian uniform, turns it. I love a double sided
Inside and
jacket.
out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And into from, the Russian uniform into like a puffy jacket.
Into his Maverick
Bruce,
jacket.
Bruce
This
Springsteen.
is why
Yeah,
I was
Bruce
like,
Right.
Springsteen shirt. Yeah.
he will appreciate it. It's an aviator's jacket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I loved it.
Can I ask this quick question? Because, like, so in this period, they're talking about we need to be here, we need a board, or we're whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And they're classifying it as they're in the records room, but it's obviously they're not in the records room. They're in the other office across
Mhm.
the way, right?
Mhm.
At that point, it's kind of threw me because I was like, who's watching that hallway on top of that? To know that they're there. Like, it's such perfect timing. I was like,
That's a good question of how did they know that that's where they would actually be to.
I understood that the fact is they expected someone to come into that room, right? But
Mhm.
it's the fact that the timing was so perfect. And they were in the other room doing a completely different phase of their
That's
mission.
true. Yeah, and I didn't talk about that. We see a man, European man, middle-aged, carrying a case, and he like nods to Ethan as he's leaving.
I didn't have a problem with it. It's a movie. It's all good.
It's
And yet you had a problem with the screen.
I didn't have a problem with it. It was just an observation.
Okay, all right.
Fair enough.
And thinks he got away. You know, he even throws on a pair of glasses and is like pretends to be a tourist. And then the Kremlin explodes, and he is running to try to escape the explosion, but he gets caught up in it.
It's like a 9/11 style explosion.
So he wakes up in the hospital, and I like here how the subtitles are, as he's like waking up, they're all in Russian at first because he doesn't quite understand. But as he regains a bit more of his consciousness, they suddenly change into English letters because he can remember and listen and hear Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a couple of weird things here. Like, you think the nurse is like on his side, and there's a part where someone bumps into the cop, and it makes it seem like there's more going on. But
no, I thought that was I like that. So yeah, that we have meet this inspector, who I've just called Inspector in my notes, who's the Russian police officer who's in charge of finding out what Ethan knows. But I like that it was he was trying to be very cool and very threatening, and the nurse just undercuts him immediately. So I like that. That was basically what that was, a character beat.
Totally.
And here we get Ethan stealing a paperclip from the file to pick a lock, as we talked about in our Dead Reckoning.
Oh gosh,
I love when they do this in movies, and also it is a way that you can get out of handcuffs. Yeah. He gets out of his handcuffs, goes out the window, and I like this moment between the inspector and Ethan where it's so like, he's like, he's out there. There's nowhere to go, and they have this good byplay of like, not a good idea, huh? No, seemed like one a minute ago. And
I appreciate it mainly because it's an understatement of recognizing that the detective is actually intelligent enough to understand situational perspectives of what's happening. So he understands this guy's international spy. He's had, but not even at that level. Just understanding that, like being able to piece together context, and isn't quite the peer or necessarily at the same level, but understanding the fact that this person can piece together relatively quickly what is happening.
Yeah.
And is definitely not the equal, but can be sufficiently intelligent or sufficiently contextually perceptive to understand that he has to think outside of the box, right? Because this plays into later, right? So what just happened? Oh, and then just trying to piece it all together and quickly and being very adaptable, which is going to end up being obviously key to the later pieces of the movie. But it's just the fact that it sets it up in such a very simplistic way. But when you actually think about it, you're like, why would he think that? And then you realize, oh, okay. And then later on, it makes a deeper connection.
He's still, I don't know if he's a worthy adversary for Ethan now.
Yeah. So I like here, Ethan is about to come back in. A van comes by, and Ethan looks up and realizes, oh, wait, there's a wire here. I can zip line across to the van. He does it, and there's this moment of once he actually does it, like shock on his face. Like, wait, I did this, and he looks up at the inspector. Is like, you see, I did that, and the guy's like, you did that, and then realized, oh wait, I'm supposed to catch you. I have a gun. I'm gonna come after you.
The fact that when he does it, and you see the pan of the face of like, what is happening? Wait, I thought I was going to get a promotion. Like you can see like the
wheels
thought process of, and then like, oh, I'm so sorry, buddy.
Ethan, runs out of there, steals a leather jacket off of someone's clothes drying. Which who is washing and drying a leather jacket?
Maybe it's pleather.
Many people. I mean, when you're taking care of leather jackets, you're doing like the overhaul, but then the interior is typically another
I
material,
guess.
so you want to
Okay,
wash
that's
that
a
so like
fair
you could
point.
dry it.
That's a fair point.
I mean, when I wash my cosplays and the outside is pleather, but the interior is satin or something else, I have to wash both sides very differently.
Fair point. All right. I rescind my comment then.
Also, my dad has a dry cleaner. He had a dry cleaner, so like it was all basically one thing. But then like I also understood that he screwed up a lot of material things. Like I'll be like, there's two different things you need to work about. So.
Yeah, so he also steals a pair of boots from like someone selling something at like a thrift market or something.
How do you find the exact size?
I mean, I assume
it's a movie.
Yeah, or it's just something to have on his feet, even if it doesn't fit him quite right.
Yeah,
but that's also the thing, because then we see the fact that he traveled for a long period. I have walked in boots that are one size too big. The amount of blisters that
and he doesn't even have socks on. He didn't steal socks.
Yes, that's the worst part. And he's wearing a pleather / leather hoodie
with no shirt on, so it's just sticking to him.
No shirt. Oh my god!
But more importantly, he steals a cell phone, sets up a meet, and goes to a rendezvous point. And when he gets to that rendezvous point, he gets into the car, and the secretary of the IMF is in there.
Hooray!
And also his chief analyst, Brent,
played by Jeremy Renner. How do you guys feel about Jeremy Renner?
I like Jeremy Renner.
I really enjoy Jeremy.
I think it's a little bit. I feel bad for him sometimes because he had 2 different spy franchises that he thought he was going to be.
That should have. He was going to take over
this and Bourne, and he never actually did. But hey, he's got Hawkeye.
Yeah, he's got franchises up the wazoo.
Wow, he had Hawkeye.
Aww.
I mean, it's Hawkeye and Hawkeye. That's how it is.
He's got Hawkeye residuals.
I mean, he had Mission Impossible. I mean, he keeps missing it. But yeah, no, I agree. I was thoroughly happy when he showed up, and I was like, Jeremy Renner. When I saw the movie, I was like, this is a character that I can see taking over the franchise. Like, he played the part very well, very differently, but very well. That I was very happy and be like, I would trust the rest of the franchise.
Interesting. All right. So here we get the return of Ethan Hunt's drawing skills. We saw it last time in 3 when he's drawing on of the building on the window and like doing the math. Here he sketches out
3 seconds. I timed it.
It was great.
3
How fast he draws that
he
face.
Has a perfect face.
Oh my god. But
as an artist, I can't do that.
So it was cool not only that he had the description in his brain as able to write it down, but then Jeremy Renner was able to immediately identify.
But he says it's your sketch is crude. It's like, that's not crude. I can show you a crude sketch. That is not a crude sketch.
Having worked in court systems, that's pretty fucking clear. Witness testimony at that point.
Anyway, so yes, he's able to identify it, and it's apparently Kurt Hendricks, who is Cobalt. And at this point, we find out that the secretary or the president has initiated Ghost Protocol, which means that the entire IMF has been disavowed. And
okay,
yes,
excuse me, I have a question.
All right.
If the IMF knows that Kurt Hendricks is Cobalt, then why do they break into the Kremlin? Because I thought the reason why they broke into the Kremlin was to find Cobalt's info.
They don't know that he's Cobalt. It's here that Ethan connects that they know who Kurt Hendricks is, but they don't necessarily know that he's Cobalt. Okay. So Ethan here has connected the two for them.
Yeah, it's literally the fact that they're trying to piece together the pieces. Yeah. But it's hearsay or not.
Well, yeah, no, he went into the Kremlin to find out who he was, and he did, but not in the way you'd expect.
No.
Right, Jay?
Yes.
The president has initiated Ghost Protocol, and so they're basically shut down, except for a cache of weapons and gear that the secretary is conveniently overlooked. And I like how he's telling us, there's nothing you can do unless you were to attack us and go to this cache that I forgot exists. And
If you attack us and suddenly become enemy number one, and you understand that you know very specific hotspots of, we won't track you at, which is really so. But that's the biggest thing, right? So it's like,
well, they can't even track him because the entire IMF is shut down.
right. One, it's shut down, but it's also the fact that the IMF doesn't know where specific caches of weapons and all that other stuff is, and it's only because the secretary knows specifically. So it's very interesting because at this point, we're going to disavow you and all your team and everything else. It would be such a shame if you contacted these two people that you happen to know, right? And I don't know what else to say.
I like how in all of this part, Brandt is like, "Sir, maybe you shouldn't say."
Right. So I liked how. So I know the joke is Ethan Hunt always goes rogue in every movie, but this time he goes rogue with permission, which is nice. But unlike,
is it really going rogue then?
Yeah, I did kind of feel like.
I mean, it is protocol.
Yeah.
Everyone is now rogue, so everyone is fully, which is kind of interesting because then you're like, if everyone is now considered rogue, is anyone considered?
Well, I get the impression everyone else in the IMF just goes home. They don't keep going.
What life?
I don't know. I mean, whatever. But yeah.
But anyway, so in the midst of all this, there's an attack on the car, and the secretary is killed. They go over a bridge and into the water. They get shot at, and Ethan uses a flare on a body underwater to get them to chase the body, and they escape.
And in the next scene, Brandt is like, that shouldn't have worked.
No.
Right. Which is interesting because right off the bat, one, it's meant to throw you off that Brandt is not an agent or anything else. Brandt is just a stooge.
What? A stooge?
Right.
Okay. I thought you were going to say he's smart.
No. At this point, he's a stooge. He doesn't understand what people think, and he doesn't understand what agents do. Two, it also establishes like the fact that Hunt understands what to do when he's stuck underwater. Which is a big thing that comes into later episodes, right? So, like, he's learning, he's like evolving, he's figuring out when a car goes into the water, what do I do? Okay, so this worked this one time. I throw a flare out, and Brandt asking the questions of this should not have worked. Right. But it's also understanding this, slowly teaching you in this period. Specifically, Agent Hunt has an innate ability to understand the human condition, right? And it's not because it's like he as a spy. He just goes, when you see a shiny, you go for the shiny.
Yeah.
And it's slow, and it's starting off. And I mean, at this point, it's Mission Impossible 4 at this point, right? So, like, you're seeing like this slow evolution. We've talked about this earlier, and if you haven't, please listen to the other episode that I'm part of. Thank you very much. And all the other Mission Impossible episodes that we've talked about, where I talk about the fact that like every episode he's learning more and more and more. Like, you don't see it. He has a wealth of knowledge, but like every time he's like, he experiments and he just tries to figure out what else he can do to survive. Which then in this part, because at this point, isn't this when like everyone assumed Jeremy Renner was going to take over?
That is what everyone thought.
So at this point, it was like the master is teaching,
right?
So this is going to be the phase where Jeremy Renner learns he can't play by the books. So like at this point, I was when I first watched this in the theater, I was like, this is where Jeremy Renner understands he can't follow the manual.
Mm.
And this is going to be the point where Jeremy Renner suddenly becomes like this badass.
Right.
Yeah. So they make their way to the cache, which is in a train car. I like how the design of it was not well thought out by the techs at IMF, where they have to put the scanner, because there's all these like scaffolding things going
I
past.
see green. I see green. I see green.
Yeah. So once they actually get in, though, Benji and Jane are also inside the cache. We get a video of Hendrix, who seems like, he's a nuclear
extremist. I liked that a lot. There should be more movies where the villain is a nuclear extremist.
Wow.
What?
That's good.
I like the fact that you're so adamant that you love the fact that he's a nuclear extremist.
Well, do you know why I liked it, Jay? Because it was different. Practically my go-to thing I always say, but it's true.
They connect the stolen codes that they have, that Sabine had, with the football that Cobalt has, and figure out, all right, so he plans to detonate it somehow. So we need to stop him. We need to stop him from getting the codes.
Yes.
And so we find out that Cobalt is sending one of his goons, Wistrom, to get the codes in Dubai. So they have to get to Dubai. And they drive. I like the camels. That was funny.
I like the whole train scene because they understand. Because then he explains it's Ghost Protocol. They're by themselves, and everyone's like, "Oh no!" And then they're like, miscellaneously, they touch something and pump.
Oh, yeah.
Like, "Oh no!" And then you see the mask machine. Then you see the guns, all that stuff. Like, it was very cute to see. Like, it's very specific. This train car hits every other movie, right? So you get the mask, you get the guns, it hits every prior movie, like all the technology. So you understand the fact that it's a conglomerate of prior tech. It doesn't have anything to address anything in the future. It's strictly
it's the leftovers that people forgot about.
Yeah, exactly. Because in theory, you think at this point when I watched it, I was like, Jim Rander's going to take on, and the franchise is going to go. So there's possibly future tech, but no, it's just strictly
some of the stuff we've seen before. Yeah.
We've only seen before, and it's
or that level
activated. Yeah, and it's not even like super secure. Like Jerry Renner just leans up, and then all these guns show up, and you're like, oh, this is just a piece of crap train car from like 20 years ago. Okay. They are literally running bare bones.
What did you guys think about the part where Ethan says, you all can walk away if you want, and Jeremy Renner kind of makes a motion like he's going to?
Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, that's
Did you notice that, Jay?
Yeah, I did. I didn't notice the first time I watched it, but I noticed it after the fact.
Yeah.
I like how he plays where he puts his gaze, right? So he looks over at companions, and then he looks, and it seats for a split second longer on Ethan, and then him saying, "I'm in." Like it plays very differently now that I know it. But initially, like, I was like, "Oh, I mean, he's a spy. He obviously, when he says he's in, it's because he wants to make the world a better place." But like after the fact, I was like, it made me replay them multiple times and going, okay.
So they go to the Burj Khalifa, which is where the meet is going to happen, and so their whole plan is that they're going to have they're going to split up the buyer and the seller, and have members of their team stand in for them and interact with them without them actually never knowing that they weren't meeting the real person. So they're going to have it on 2 different floors.
This feels like it's right out of the TV show. this premise.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that they would have in the TV show, or even like the first movie they had stuff like this.
Which surprisingly, the simplicity of it works so much better.
Oh, yeah.
Except for the one thing. The only thing is the fact that they moved the rooms by one door over.
No, so I don't think that's what it was. I think they had different floors.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they had two
yeah.
floors, right? But it also, when I've watched it one
Yeah.
and two, and the second time, it looked like they were trying to transfer over one door, which threw me off.
Interesting.
But like, it made more sense when I first watched it, and I assumed that they were just transferring
From like,
that number and just adding an
yeah,
extra
that's what I
number
thought too.
to make it the floor
Interesting.
over, right? So like when I watched it again this time, I was like, it really looks like they're moving 112 to 110.
Now I gotta pull this up.
And I got really confused. And then I was like, I don't think I drink, but I think I'm
All
drunk
right, let's
because I
see.
think this is weird.
I'm pulling it up now because I'm very curious about this.
It just didn't feel right to me.
I didn't notice, but something I did notice around this part is someone uses the old iPhone timer where it's like a scroll wheel.
Oh
I was like,
yeah.
I remember that.
So the other wrinkle in this whole situation is that they need to access the elevators so that they think they're going to the correct floors, but elevator controls are behind next gen firewalls. All right, hold on. I'm at the scene. Goes from 119 to
Hmm.
Oh, block it. I'm trying to
to
pull
one
it
eight.
up right now,
What?
too.
Oh wait. 119 to 118G.
Right?
All right. This is very confusing. Why would they?
It's so
Why
confusing.
would they? Did they just? Huh? What if we're wrong?
It's super
What if we're wrong? It's
confusing.
not two different floors. It's just two rooms next to
No,
each
it's
other.
specifically no. It's supposed
They
so.
are two different
That's why
floors.
I got very confused. I think they screwed up in post
They definitely did. Wow, I've never caught this. That's fascinating.
I think they screwed up in post because in the final production you see the fact that the actual movie. I think initially the plan was they were supposed to be next to each other, but in the actual movie you can see the fact that they're identical in a parallel vertical perspective rather than a room next to each other. And that's why they can have each other running at the same time, like the con running simultaneously. So I don't think most people I don't think it's been addressed before because
And I've listened to multiple commentaries, either both by the filmmakers and other people on this film, or even just talking about it. I don't know that I've never heard this before. I've never noticed it.
so the thing is, so when you watch it, so if you have a room side by side, specifically suites, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be identical.
No, there won't. No, it'll be.
But
It should be
if you're
floors.
underneath each other, they are precisely identical, which also plays into the fact that they have to wait for very precise moments of the conversation, and then it can superimpose each other. So this is why I was like, oh, wait, they're not next to each other because then because in theory when you watch it, it almost looks like they're interacting at the like they come on at the same time onto the same
very well
floor.
cut, between
right, and that's why the elevator trick is super important.
Right.
Otherwise, the elevator trick would mean nothing.
So let's go back because we skipped ahead a little bit, but we got to talk about what they do to get the elevator.
Before we do that, I have one last observation. The first is when we see them go from one floor to another, they go down the steps.
And
I feel like they have to be on separate floors, or else they might see each other.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, Christian, please carry on.
So they can't get in. They need to hack into the elevators, but they can't because it's behind a giant firewall, and they can't go through. Like Ethan names all these other ways. All right, to get up however many. I think it's 11 stories and 7 over. So
it's amazing.
You can't do vents. You can't do internal stairways. You've got to go from the outside. How is he going to do it? Gecko gloves. And so Ethan Hunt's going to climb up the side of the Burj Khalifa, which of course Tom Cruise did in real life.
Yes. So I have a lot to say about this part.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I know we're going to bring up the dead drop again. This is the last time I will try to do so, but I told Christian, I think this scene is the best and the worst thing that ever happened to the Mission Impossible series.
Intriguing. Since I haven't been part of the dead drop, I'm very curious.
Okay, so it's the best part because it's amazing. Okay? We'll get into why it's amazing shortly. Now, it's the worst part because now people are like, okay, what comes next? How are you going to top it? And I feel like this scene is still as yet unsurpassed in any movie I've ever seen, including a Mission Impossible movie. but that's my opinion.
Really?
That's what I said.
Here's why. First of all, it goes on for a long time. It goes on and on and on. You get to really savor the emotions of it. There's emotional highs and lows. So, like, he's climbing, and then you see a sandstorm, and you're like, oh my god, is he going to have to climb in a sandstorm? But no, he doesn't. It's okay. But then the glove fails. You're like, oh my gosh, the glove fails. But then, okay, he's okay again. But then you're like, well, is the other glove going to fail? It could fail at any moment. So then he gets in, and then he, like, barely gets in. And then when he comes back down, he can't do it. It's just great.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with all of those. That is, you know, it is very well done. I saw this in IMAX, and they got up to the window. That's when the transition happens, where the screen unfolds more, and so you get to see that full 4:3 presentation. I believe is the IMAX. Actually, I don't remember what the aspect ratio is. I think it's 4:3.
It's 4:3.
Yeah, but it's just and just the look down, which, I mean, I've experienced a similar look down when I went skydiving, just looking down over as you open through the doorway.
He's making an "oh look at me" face.
See, that's the kind of reaction I like when I say these things. When I tell these things to Zach. Oh, I went in a helicopter. He's like, "Oh, well, you never catch me doing that."
That's right.
I kind of wish this was a video version.
Anyways, but seeing it on IMAX and seeing that look down with the huge ratio gave me almost the same kind of butterflies in my stomach that looking out of an actual airplane as I'm going out of it gave me. So that was so well done.
It provokes a lot of emotions, usually terror.
Yeah. So I also enjoy that one. Yeah, the glove failure again, the technology failing, and I also another aspect of that is that when he gets his laser out to cut it, it's not a perfect circle like you always see in these movies. It is a jaggedy, not quite circle, and then of course the laser fails too.
Yeah. I appreciate the fact that the glove, after he throws it off, blows back higher than them. Because because the thing is, when you throw pennies off the Empire State Building, typically the thing is the penny ends up in the net just at the same height or higher than you. Because of the way the wind gusts up, because it hits the building and then pushes everything up. So, like, physically and physics style, everything that you throw at a certain level always goes higher than you. So for me, it made it more
realistic,
positive, because I was like, oh yeah, no, that should have ended up higher. The fact that it ended up on the building is a whole different story. But like the fact that it ended up higher, it was like, because that's the reason why they don't have netting off of the Empire State Building after a certain level, because after a certain level, everything gets shoved up. So that was like, oh, that's such a nice small detail that most people will understand, or they'll get confused. Why is the glove here? And might get interested in learning about physics. Hey, learn about physics. It's great.
Stay in school, kids.
I also liked it because it was comedy to go along with all the other emotions that you're experiencing.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, after climbing, we already seen that the glove kind of sort of wasn't the best, and you don't know which glove it is. So it could be both gloves, it could be one. And then, like, Ethan sets himself up, and then he leans back and is doing the whole
oh my god
thing. It's like, what? And he has both hands off. You're like, you don't need both hands to use a laser cutter. What is wrong with you? You have a laser cutter. Use one hand, and then
it fails,
and then you get the whole smashing up against the glass. So and you're watching the hands, flip up and down in a rotation. Yeah. Just like you're like,
I was waiting for it to fail. The other glove to fail.
100% he's going out.
But he manages to just get in, crash through it.
Just to get it right. Get in and get out. And you're like, could I hold my hand in that right position? And like, it made me really think about it. Like going, okay, so if I'm kicking, can I hold my hand steady enough
No.
to not do the spider grip slide motion? And I was like,
It's a
I think I
rolling
can.
motion.
I think I can. It's not a rolling motion.
Well,
It'd
the
either
rolling
be
motion
like
is to what it to
to
come
release,
to
right?
release. Then you
Yeah.
don't want to do
But
that.
that's the thing. So like you're rotating
Yeah.
out and then rotating. So in theory, it should be a rolling motion.
All these
But I was
head
like,
motions are great for a podcast. Let me
Right.
say.
and I'm like, I think I could do it. I think I'd be okay.
I don't know. I don't know if I could do it.
Mhm.
And the fact that he's just wearing regular sneakers,
Hmm.
Or were they? Well, they were not climbing shoes.
I don't think he's wearing climbing shoes.
I also noticed when he smashes through into the server room, he goes through the door and then just falls directly down onto the glass. So
Yeah.
it should have like cut him in half.
Well,
Or
that's
something.
like your average movie thing.
I mean, yeah, it's a movie thing, but it's like,
It's
ow.
a trope, soft glass. So it doesn't even have the toe gripping that you
No!
get from a climbing shoe.
You
No,
don't
those
want
are
the-
sneakers. What?
Yeah. You don't want the toe gripping climbing shoes when you're climbing up rock because they have a less surface area. So you want Converse. But the fact that you can it's such a weird demo. It's a very weird place where you actually want Converse versus running shoes versus
Right.
climbing shoes because the grip of it will make more sense.
Yeah.
But the fact of the rotation and everything else, now it suddenly throws me out because I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. Wait, no, I'm not good anymore. The fact that it's Converse, because Converse also has like that weird little circle at the top
Oh.
of the heel. So I was like, oh, that's the suction point. He's good. He's so good. But yeah, it's such a weird place.
I will say though, I do remember that he does actually wear real climbing shoes in Mission Impossible 2 when he's rock climbing.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Which totally makes sense.
That makes sense exactly. But here, that's funny. In my mind, it was always he's wearing climbing shoes, but no. So he gets to the server. They get control of the elevators, and then he has to get back down. But of course, his gloves are broken, so he grabs this spool of.
This was amazing too.
I don't even know what cable or something. Uses it as a rope to come down, but of course it's too short, so he has to jump over to the other end of the building and use his momentum to swing over into the window. Hits his head on the top of the window, almost falls out. Brant grabs him, Jane grabs Brant, and it's this whole struggle of him trying to get back in the window.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so cathartic.
Is it cathartic? Why is it cathartic?
Cathartic that it's done. When he comes back in, it's cathartic. You feel that release of just, you don't realize you've been holding your breath this entire time, but you have, and now you can relax.
Right.
Everything is fine. And there's a nice comedic bit too, because Benji had to take over doing all of the room changes that don't make no sense now that we've thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I also like the fact that like this whole time that Ethan is out there's like all this other activity, and then so like when you said it's cathartic, like that whole stress buildup is like there's other things happening that you're like, is this also gonna feel it's not just on Ethan?
That's the worst part is that he can't even control everything.
There's Benji changing all of those things out, and then coming in looking exhausted, like, wow, I'll tell you that was not easy after Ethan was just outside the building.
Yeah, one last comment about that. Have you guys seen Free Solo?
No, it's on my list. I want to watch that, but I also know it's super intense.
Well, the emotions you feel watching this scene, you will feel again.
Oh, I'm sure
you will feel it.
I assure you, yes.
Yeah. They get everything ready for the meeting. Brant is going to be wearing a contact lens, which can see a piece of paper, take a photo of it, and then scramble the numbers so that he can take a photo of the codes, scramble them, and it'll print out into the case that the person on the other floor will have.
So they're not giving them the real codes.
No.
Right. So we see the technology early on, but we don't understand what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the beginning of the movie, Hanaway has the contact, and we don't understand how he suddenly knows that there's an assassin. Like it doesn't explain it. So now we get the full definition and the full explanation of what this technology is. We only see the contact, it's weird, multifaceted.
Yeah, it's got like a
publicity.
grid pattern on it or something. Yeah.
So like it's nice because now they finally actually explain some of the technology, but
Yeah.
it also explains the fact that why it's so obvious when you know what you're looking for.
Mm. Yeah.
Mhm. Despite
So
it
at
being
this
spy
point,
stuff.
yeah, at this point also we get the mask machine breaking down, which I like that. It was interesting that it was also a dual mask. You had two masks printing at once on the same thing. Not sure how that really works, but you know, it looked cool.
The way when I looked at it, I was like, why? And then I was like, okay, so they're gonna slice it down, and then they're probably gonna die here, right? That's
Yeah.
how I initially thought about it. But then when I watched it again, I was like, no, because then every mask covers all the hair. So how does this work? And I got really angry.
No, don't get angry. This is the movie.
I was like, because if it cuts
Maybe it
off at a certain
extends. I
point,
don't know. I don't know.
I was like, because it's not like it's a full ear either. It's like a
It was
half and
just the
half.
front of the face, really. Yeah.
Right. So then you're like,
This is
this
the
wouldn't
one that
work.
makes the least sense of the masks, the
I was
mask
like,
machines of
yes, it
the.
makes it so much easier to carry around.
Uh,
And I guess you can have spare ears somewhere, like latex
we don't
ears.
see a mask maker in 5. I think we see him in 3, 4, 6, and 7.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, you're right
Yeah,
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 because
but
and my assumption was because it didn't work, so they took a pause. That's how I
yeah.
read. But yeah, no, it actually made me angry because like, why are you doubling it up? It doesn't make any sense.
But it looks
Yeah,
cool.
it does. I mean, it looks cool, but it fails anyway. So they have realized they have to go without. They're playing a risky game now of hoping that Wistrom and Sabine have never met. Which,
Well, not even never met, never Googled each other's pictures. The
I
IMF
mean,
knows
how
what
would
they look
okay?
like.
There, one's an international assassin.
Uh
The
huh.
other is a goon for a nuclear extremist. Do you really think they're on Google?
Well, not okay, not on Google, but they should have their ways of knowing who the
Should
people they're
they?
meeting are.
Should
Maybe
they?
the
Should
IMF
they?
can.
Well, no, but that's the whole point of being a spy. You have no presence,
Hmm?
Hmm.
right?
All
So
right,
no
yeah,
one
fair enough.
understands. I mean, otherwise, Ethan would have been fucking detected immediately any mission he went on.
Right.
An interesting concept.
Mhm.
Bam, bam,
We'll get to that later.
bam. Yeah, bam, bam, bam. But I mean, also, I mean, at this point in time, it's 2011. It's at the beginning of like real social media
Oh
like
yeah. Well,
presence. So
yeah.
we don't
I mean,
have.
even Facebook was around since
It's not what
24,
it
so it's
was, yeah.
2004. But yeah, it wasn't what it was yet.
I
Really,
mean, Facebook started, but I mean,
it wasn't open to everyone until
it
maybe
wasn't
this
open
time
until
actually.
2000 and
Maybe 10, somewhere around there was when it got opened up to everyone.
2009, 2008, 2009 when it
Okay.
started to be opened up. But even then, it was supposed to be that you were supposed to be a college student
Or you had the
Right.
separate
until,
like yeah.
yeah, until 2010, 2011. So this
No,
is
yeah,
like
it was right
the
around this
beginning.
time. Yeah, you're right. Okay, that's
All
interesting.
right.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
But yeah, they
Um,
need to not know who they are for the scene to work, which it
yeah,
does.
yeah. So I like this here. We talked about it a little bit before that there's a mirroring of the two scenes. They have this great camera move where it moves from one floor down to the next. It was so good.
Mhm.
But also but before that happens, actually, I just got to clarify that they find that Wistrom has someone who can authenticate the codes. So they realize, all right, they're gonna immediately know that the codes are fake if we use this. So they have to reprogram the case, which of course Brandt has thoughts about, but
Mhm.
comes around to realizing, that even if they fail here, they can get codes another way, and they would be in the wind after that.
I assumed that the code validator would have validated any number.
Anything. That's the thing, but they don't know that
Right.
because they don't know that he's, they've got his family hostage.
Right, right. So I was like, well, that seems like a little extra. You just have to hope that this person's a good human being
Mm.
and talk to them, and it'll be fine, right?
It was definitely interesting that they had to adapt when they only have a person here to give them the. They'll know it's fake.
They're reprogramming the case. They have the meeting, and the contact lens is transmitting to the printer that's in the case that Jane has on the other floor as she's meeting with the real Wistrom. And as everything is going to plan, except Sabine notices the contact in Brent's eye after the deal is done. So they have a big fight.
She also notices him blinking, and I really like that. In too many movies, the world famous international assassin is kind of dumb and easily falls for whatever they're planning to do to them, and not her. This is good.
I took the wrong moment to take a bite of cake. So for our listeners, we can keep this in because this is related. So for my birthday, my wife made me a version of the Tom Cruise cake, the coconut white chocolate cake that Tom Cruise sends to everyone who works with, or even people he worked with a long time ago, like Kirsten Dunst back in Interview with a Vampire. So I figured, it would be appropriate as I'm recording it. I just had a little piece of cake, but I took the wrong moment to eat a bite, and so that's what that silence was there.
Or the right moment.
It's Mission Impossible season, the most wonderful time of the year.
Oh, yes. But no, my wife, amazing. This cake is so good.
Nice.
Before we continue on, I just want to back up for a hot second.
Sure.
When the car goes into the water.
Oh, that all the way back there. Okay.
Knowing what we know now, at the time I was like, oh crap. They're going to breathe. They'll be fine. They're going to send this thing. But knowing now, I was like, are they not going to breathe the air from the tire? And I got mad that they didn't breathe the air from the tire.
Funny. I mean, it is a thing that is possible to do. If you
and
have
it's a thing they would do in a movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. It's been done in movies since that time. So I was like, and like my brain repositioned it, and I thought that was the moment that's what I thought.
You thought that they did that, and so when they didn't, you were like,
I learned this technique.
Nope.
And I was like,
I found that out from MythBusters.
Yeah, and I thought it came from this movie, and I got mad that it didn't happen here. I was like, oh no.
Anyways. So, back to the movie. We have Sabine seeing the contact. So, there's a big fight. We see that Brant's actually got some skills in fighting, which is confusing because he's just an analyst.
Well, Ethan reacts to this later, yeah.
Well, yeah. But at the same time, like, I didn't think twice. When I first watched it, I didn't think twice about it because I was like...
Yeah, because he's Jeremy Renner, and he's done action.
Well, this is before I knew Jeremy Renner as an action person.
Oh, I guess
so I understood
assumed.
Yeah, so I just assumed that you work for the IMF
and you get
you know how to do things.
But would you expect Benji to do that as a technician?
Well, Benji has done not necessarily that quality.
No.
But can handle himself.
Let's face it, Simon Pegg is no Jeremy Renner, just in the way he carries himself.
Hold on. Have you seen Hot Fuzz? Because he can fight in that movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. So, but we also, we've watched his progression in this movie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we understand that he came from outside and all this other stuff. The fact that Jeremy Renner is an IMF person and analyst he's not a tech person. He's an analyst, right? Okay, so it's a different role. So I was like, yeah, okay. Obviously he knows he's with the secretary. So obviously one-on-one. So he should probably be able to at least take a bullet. Mm-hmm. Which unfortunately he does not, which is such a drawback.
So in addition to this, Sabine is getting away, so Jane goes after her. They have this big fight, which was pretty brutal. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, Jane kicks her out of the open window from when they were climbing up, or when they had Ethan climbing up, and she falls, maybe, and then comes back up. I don't know, Jay. What would the physics say?
The mass gravity pull would pull them down.
It'd be too much for her.
Yeah, a person's too heavy for that.
As this is going on, Ethan is going after Wistrom, who's running away. And as he's almost about to catch up with him, the Russian inspector arrives and is finds him and is about to catch him when Ethan starts running.
Mhm.
And there's so much running, lots of running here.
So much.
Runs and runs, yeah.
Running into the sandstorm. The only thing that would have made this better if as they were running, this old radio that they see as they're like, grabbing scarves and headphones, or not headphones, goggles or whatever, just
Mhm.
start playing Sandstorm by Darude.
Yeah. I did like how the sandstorm they saw in the background.
Comes back. Yeah, it's a Chekhov
Yeah.
sandstorm.
Sure, it's sort of like Chekhov's open window.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually like it because in reality, typically when you see a sandstorm out of the distance, you don't actually understand how quickly they come upon you.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the
I mean, even
assumption
Benji says, "Oh, that's so far away.
so far,
you don't have to worry about
which is a very typical American perspective,
it."
right?
Except
So you
he's
don't understand.
British.
Yeah, but I mean,
Western perspective.
Western, yeah, let's do the Western.
Yeah.
Like, they don't understand like how quickly or how devastating these can be. So it's such a great moment of it'll be fine. It's just sand. Oh God, it's not just sand. Oh, I'm dying.
Anakin Skywalker's worst nightmare.
It is a nice way to mix up your standard car chase and foot chase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, they have to grab like scarves from these stands to tie over their face because they don't want to be choking on sand. Ethan pulls the goggles out that he had before. Woodstrom grabs some like sunglasses or something.
Yep. Speaking of, how good is it that Ethan gets to keep those goggles or glasses? Did you think anything about that? Like, if I were a security detail and someone shows up with like these goggles, I'll be like,
"That's weird.
Maybe we should question them." But they're like, it's fine,
I mean,
whatever.
the thing is though, they're also Oakley, so they just look like sunglasses.
Stupid Oakleys.
A little bit of both, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so Wistrom is about to get away in a car. Like, Ethan sees he's moving really fast. He has a tracker on the briefcase, and so he gets in a car of his own. They have a big crash, and they get out of their cars. They're chasing and finally get out of the sandstorm. And as he gets out of the sandstorm, Wistrom pulls off a mask and reveals that he's actually Cobalt. Why? There's really no good reason.
Well, I like the fact that Ethan at the point like rips off the chinny chin.
Oh yeah, so he's like, what? Why is this coming off?
And I love the fact that it's the chinny chin of all things. It's not the nose. It's not anything else. It's just the chinny chin, which is so good.
No one that I've seen has an actual good reasoning for why Widstrom went in disguise, or Cobalt went in disguise as Widstrom to this meet.
Well, my assumption is that so the way I looked at it was that the fact that Widstrom is supposed to be a whole different. Obviously, we all know it's going to be a different person, but like no one, and you think it's two different people, right? Mm-hmm. So you assume that Widstrom versus is Cobalt is going to be in a different place. Widstrom. So you assume that now Widstrom coming in with the expert. You think about it of the stooge with it's what is like, it's kind of like the meme, right? So Fast and Furious, right? Mm-hmm. So Braga is the big bad of Fast and Furious 9 or 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
What number is that? God
Braga
damn.
was
7 or 8? 7. I think it's 7. I think it's 7 or 8. Braga is the big bad.
I know. I think
but you don't understand that it's the big bad. So you don't pursue them as heavily. You think that's going to lead you somewhere. So you don't necessarily want to take them down.
That's actually that's actually a decent reasoning of that. Because that's a good point. If they if they knew it was Cobalt, they would just stop him right there. They wouldn't let him go.
Right. Huh. Rather than just kind of letting them lead them on and just
to lead them to Cobalt. But
right.
Okay, that's actually a good explanation. All right, but in the interest of time, let's move on. So we go back to a safe house where we have this whole
they're all yelling at each other.
Yeah.
And Brand was totally wrong.
What's that?
Brandt was totally wrong. Moreau was she had a gun and she was about to shoot someone. If Carter hadn't kicked her,
Oh.
then she would have gotten shot and died anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I don't know. She could have.
Also, Brandt was right there. He could have done something, maybe.
Well,
Could have shot, and then not had to deal with them being kicked out the window. I'm saying. I mean, Brent just is trigger shy, I guess. Maybe.
well, right, but they also never really explained, at least not to my satisfaction, why they couldn't kill Moreau.
Because she's an asset.
Yeah, I know they said that.
Any information that she had would be valuable, especially because they thought they still needed to track down Cobalt.
Right. So they didn't know who.
Back into why he's wearing the mask. So yeah, that's actually giving me a good explanation for that. Interesting.
Not to totally write it, but it would have been cool if they like knew that she had some vital piece of intel that they needed, and that way the audience could have been like, "Oh no," when she died.
But that's the thing. Like, I think they tried. I'm going to assume that there's probably some cut footage somewhere.
Oh, there's a whole ton of stuff.
Yeah, but specifically in this perspective, where the assumption is that she had very key information, so they needed to specifically keep them alive. But like, I mean, you want to keep every possible lead alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So here's also where we get the big confrontation between Brandt and Ethan about, how does someone with your skills end up as an analyst? They do the whole gun swap thing, which is really like, Ethan will pull a gun on him, and he's very quickly will disarm Ethan and
disassemble the gun and understand all that.
So Ethan,
I was kind of confused. I was like, why does Brandt need to have some big dark secret? Why doesn't he just say, I didn't want to be an agent anymore, or I don't want to be an agent, or I used to be in the Marines, but now I'm an analyst, or something like that?
Right.
This is giving me flashbacks to our Get Smart episode where you're wondering why someone who's an analyst would want to be an agent.
That's not what I said. It's a bit more involved than that.
Is it though?
You have to go back and listen.
No, that's basically what it is. You wanted a motivation why an analyst would want to be an agent. But that's besides the point here.
Yeah, you definitely did.
Okay, fair enough.
I listened to that one.
Ethan leaves because he gets a call. And this is where we get Brandt's whole story, that he was a protection detail for Ethan and Julia when the attack on Julia happened. And so he feels guilty about it, and that's why he walked away.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate, because prior to this, we understand like this whole situation with Ethan and everything. So like it really ties up a lot of loose ends of why Ethan is back and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. So like until that moment, I didn't understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, didn't Ethan just be like,
I'm good.
I'm out. I'm happy. I'm living my life. And then I was like, oh. So like it really started to.
And those questions were sort of like, I mean, for people who had seen 3, those questions were sort of like, okay, what really happened with Julia? Because they didn't just write her out like that. Come on.
Right.
After the whole thing of her being the crux of the 3rd movie. So it was an interesting way to get away from it.
Specifically considering this franchise and understanding like if it was something like you expect it to be not like obvious, but like you expect it to be addressed, to be like played against you. Right? The fact that they didn't mention any of it for so long, I was like, there's something, but is there something? So it made me triple question myself about what is happening about it because of the way the movie franchise manipulates you.
I will say this subplot was not the most well developed of the movie. It's a lot of telling and not showing.
How dare you?
But as for Julia, last movie she nearly got killed a bunch of times and was tied to a chair for hours. Presumably, if I were her, I would be like, I'm out too.
Except
I'm not
that wasn't her who was tied to a chair.
Well, whatever.
Someone in a Julia mask.
Pay attention to the movies.
The point is, she was in danger, extreme danger.
Anyway, so we go to a boatyard where actually we have a appearance from a character from the very first movie, one of Max's goons, the big giant guy who was there, and he has the mask from the first movie. And when I say mask, I mean the ski mask that is sewed up and has all the toes filled that Jay and I were both tempted to create.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit behind the scenes. They were going to try to bring back Vanessa Redgrave for this scene, to be basically the character that this is in place of. But
really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
To be the White Widow's mother, as we'll find out later.
But
Paramount wouldn't pay her enough.
Oh,
and so it fell apart.
Yeah.
This is also in the era of Paramount was not entirely confident in the franchise, so that they weren't willing to do it. Had they known now, I'm sure they would have forked it out because that would have been great.
My god, I did not know that.
Yeah. So fun behind the scenes thing. Anyway, so he instead meets a character who plays a similar role, who's known as the Fog. He's an arms dealer, and guess who's back? Our buddy Bogdan, who is the one who orchestrated this meet.
Set up and payoff.
Yeah. Ethan convinces the Fog to help him by saying, basically, I'm here to give you a future because the war is coming. And he's like, no, war is good for business. That's, Ferengi rule of acquisition, except a nuclear war, because there'll be no one left to sell to. So he tells him who exactly has the satellite that can be used to activate the code, the briefcase, and it's a Indian tycoon named Nath. I forget what his first name is.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to Mumbai, and it's fancy party time.
That's right. It wouldn't be a Mission Impossible movie without it.
So this annoyed me because it was set up that when they're looking for Ethan, they realize they can't find Ethan, and they look at Bogdan, and then they're like, "Find me all the information about this guy."
Oh,
it doesn't pay off at all.
Doesn't it though? Well, actually, no, it really doesn't. Actually,
it really doesn't because
that's a good
the
point.
arms dealer calls them.
That's true. Yeah,
the arms dealer calls the Russian inspector. Yeah, it does nothing, and I got so annoyed. I was like,
I never noticed that. Interesting.
I noticed.
That's an icebox problem.
Exactly. Anyways,
or fridge logic, as it's more commonly known now. But I like the classic Hitchcock phrase of icebox problem.
Nice.
Fair enough.
Go to Mumbai. We have they're all ready in their fancy clothes except for
Benji.
Simon Pegg and Benji, because he's got to do all the tech stuff, and Jeremy Renner's wearing a magnet suit under his clothes. So the plan is Jane will seduce Nath.
I can only imagine what Amanda from the Spy Museum would say about this.
Why?
Because, I don't know, it feels like it's been a long time since we've seen a spy movie just have the female agent straight up seduce someone to get information. It's such an old trope.
I mean, it's Pierce Brosnan, Mission Impossible, where every spy movie.
It's
of a certain era, yeah.
I mean, it's different in the fact that it's a female lead, sub-lead, versus a male lead. But typically you see male lead doing it. But I mean, it's a typical trope throughout the years.
Yeah,
that has never
gone away entirely.
Yeah,
I mean, even in what is that? What you call Red Sparrow? That's part of their whole training is to be sparrows.
Right. I guess that movie isn't that old.
No. I mean, it's newer than this movie.
Right.
Yeah. So she's gonna seduce Bridgenath to get the code, and once they get the code, Brant will be going through the vents into their security system to enter the code to deactivate it.
To turn off, and they're going to turn off all the servers to keep it cool so they can avoid the fans and make the magnetic little truck move over.
This little Mars rover looking thing.
Oh my god.
Brant is the person who actually gets to do the Mission Impossible pose, except no wires, just jump and being held up by magnets, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, hesitates, jump.
Did you enjoy his weird stretching before he was doing it?
I did, because I probably would.
Apparently, these are stretches this was not in the script. This is just something that Jeremy Renner came up with, and I think these are stretches that he just does himself. It's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
no, they're actually really good stretches because I do those same stretches. I mean, I do that. Those are stretches I learned in martial arts, and I still do to this day.
Yeah.
Before I run and everything, it's just a interesting period of this movie where so you basically get right. It's chainmail under the suit.
Yep.
So he gets to walk around and ching 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 ching. And as an Asian with the last name Chang, I'm allowed to say ching 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 ching.
Wasn't gonna say anything.
And I like the fact that he's like, oh, it's gonna get hot. I gotta roll up my sleeves, and it's just chainmail.
Mm-hmm.
And then takes the time and it's like, I gotta be, yeah. And then eventually does it because it parallels to the fact that like it parallels directly to the concept of Ethan constantly jumping and all that other stuff. And then also skydiving, right? So like it's just chainmail that goes up to the three of us have gone to skydiving or fake skydiving. And
well, you don't think it's it's the whole body thing, like a wetsuit kind of deal? That kind of
no, it's specific. You can specifically see it cuts off at the waist.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that. Oh.
So like it annoyed me because I was like, you have to be like elite gymnast
your core has got to
level
be. Oh my god,
to be able to keep your legs up over the fan. That's now dead, and then with the magnet pushing you up. Great, the magnet's pushing you up, but like to be able to make this happen, and then I love the fact that underneath the fan, and it's practical, is that the fact that the Earth makes a little pyramid, like a little upward. So the fan, even. Because so the fan is pulling up the dirt and making this little channel up, right? So it makes 100% sense that that point is a little higher than the rest, and if you watch the movie, you see that that middle of the fan has a point. I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Until you start to move the truck, and then like, oh god, this is gonna be bad. Jeremy Renner, if you actually did this, God bless your back muscles. I have, I'm pretty good. My core, my back is pretty good. I cannot keep my back straight like that. Much less my legs. Much less in heat. But the other thing is, so they're running supercomputers, right? Within like 10 minutes, supercomputers are not getting that hot, so that annoyed me.
Interesting. Okay.
But I appreciated the fact that, like, basically that whole channel is a heatsink, which totally makes sense if the computers were still running at full capacity.
But unfortunately, all of this is for, like, they get the code, but this is all for naught because at the same time, Hendricks and Wickstrom were actually using a local TV station to get access to the satellite to launch their missile from a Russian sub.
Which is amazing because it's a direct parallel to the beginning of the movie when Ethan is running his campaign
own op,
and they're doing this whole subsection that no one is aware but directly relates to it, and they're manipulating them, which I thought the parallels were fantastic in this part.
So they were able to track the signal and figure out where it's coming from. So Benji, Brandt, and Carter go to the TV station to go after Wickstrom to see if they can stop the signal there. On the other end, we have Ethan and Ethan and Jane going after Hendricks to this car park or a parking lot, which is actually the Vancouver Convention Center.
Yes.
And I've got a fun story about this one. So I was supposed to have a convention in June of 2020 at the Vancouver Convention Center. Obviously, it didn't happen, but I did a site visit to the convention center in November of 2019. So I got to see the space, and I knew it was in the movie. I was like, I've seen this, and so I actually talked to the person who was giving us the site visit, and she's, oh yeah, I was here when they were doing it. Everyone was really cool, but they filmed it in January, where it was winter, which was it's supposed to be Mumbai. It's supposed to be warm. So they were gluing. Apparently, the crew was gluing on leaves to the trees because there were all the trees, their leaves had fallen out to make it look like it was actually, not winter. there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I bet the actors were cold too. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They're all like they're all dressed in like jackets and coats, so they're probably fine.
I suppose.
Yeah. So that's my story about that whole thing. Like, and
I
yeah,
don't
there's
remember.
trees outside, and it's like, yeah. And yeah, I also have been through the parking lot that Ethan starts running into. There is no actual multi-tiered, Carvana style, car bending machine.
It's a fun place for a fight, though.
Oh yeah, it's a cool fight. And Hendrix and Ethan are fighting each other, basically playing keep away with the nuclear football.
Mm.
And after a while, Hendrix realizes, I don't, need to fight you. I
That's
just need to
right.
get this case away from you. So he takes a dive and jumps off of one of the platforms.
Which he really didn't need to do. He just could have thrown the case. I guess he wanted to die for his cause.
And so Ethan, knowing that he still needs to get down there to deactivate the weapon, takes one of the cars, drives it heads first down into there.
It was great.
Instead of just
Taking an
I don't
elevator?
know.
I don't know.
Or just jumping into the car and then jumping off the
Something.
car.
But he needed to get that because the countdown was ticking.
Right.
Yeah. I appreciate the fact that we see Wisdom
Yeah.
do the whole look over and then look up and you're like, oh, is he actually dead?
Oh, you mean Hendrix? Yeah.
I fully expect to see Hendrix at some point in the future.
Oh, he's definitely very dead.
He was fine. He looked over to his
Well,
right.
unfortunately, the actor
up.
Michael Nickfist has since
Yes.
passed. So
Yes,
you
unfortunately.
would not see him. He is also in the first John Wick. He's great as the bad guy
Fantastic in that role.
But yeah, so I also can't forget this. So as this is all going on, Ethan is trying to deactivate it. Even says "mission accomplished," pounding on it. But
Which I love the callback later with with
He
Luther.
calls him out on it. Yeah.
But Benji and Brandt and Jane are fighting off Winstrom. They finally managed to kill him, and Jane actually took a hit with a bullet. But before that, Winstrom had pulled out all the cables, and so Benji was rapidly trying to plug everything back in, and so they finally get it all together, and mission accomplished as the missile is about to hit the Transamerica Pyramid in San Francisco. And even chips it, yeah.
Literally at the last second.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate them showing the cable splicing and the bleeding. Mm-hmm. So if you have not worked in server rooms and cable management and trying to rethread cables, you bleed a ton because you have to strip them and then you plug them and you're ripping. The amount of times the amount of blood I have done for my miscellaneous home network, much less for work. And I know many friends who are in that industry and they are just someone cuts it and then you're just trying to the blood just flows and I was like, this only works. But then also you have a van of cables. It's just Ethernet cables. Just replace the cable. I'm pretty sure in the corner there's a cabinet of cables. Just replace. It was very interesting. So if you're not a techie, it totally makes sense. Oh, it's such a bad thing.
Also, at this point, we have the Russian inspector just find Ethan with the football and realizes, oh, we're not actually enemies, are we? Okay, you want to go to the hospital? Yeah, I think so.
Which is a great callback between 2 or 3 points in the movie where Ethan's we're not enemies. I'm trying to help you. Shut the fuck up.
So we go over to San Francisco, or actually Vancouver, an area called Granville Island, which I hung out at. Of course I did. We get a debrief. We get the only appearance of Luther in the movies here, where, like we said, that he calls out Ethan on being super corny for saying mission accomplished.
He always was corny, yeah.
Brandt, Benji, and Jane are all given new assignments, but Brandt, refuses and says, you don't really want me out there. But he finally gets the true story about Julia, that her death was faked, and that he used the supposed unsanctioned hit as a cover to get him into the prison because it was thought that Cobalt had someone in the prison. Doesn't seem like he actually did, but he at least was able to make the connection with Bogdan. We got him
Yeah,
information.
and the concept of IMF wasn't their job isn't to protect his wife; it's his job to protect her.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but then we
So
learned that apparently Ethan and his wife still broke up
they
despite
did,
this.
yeah,
Well,
because
I mean, obviously they had to.
that's he says
Mm.
as long as we're together, she's in danger.
Once that happened, when I first watched the movie,
Mhm.
it made me rethink about the whole interaction throughout the movie. Every time,
The
like
Julia's mentioned.
Julia's mentioned, or
Mhm.
not just one Julia's mentioned, but like his attitude during the entire movie of
Uh,
having to be mission appropriate, mission focused, and all this other things,
mhm.
and taking all these other interactions. I was like, that, yeah,
He
no,
explains why he acts as he
he's
does.
very specifically, yeah, he takes it
Mhm.
as like he responds to it as like a mission rather than having very specific, because we see prior, like when he is invested in someone's life, Tandy, thank you, like he responds very differently, like
Mhm.
I need to protect this person, and his response to very specific situations is different. So like the fact that his response throughout the movie, I was like, it was in my face this whole time. God.
Mm.
So we also here get a glimpse of Julia, who's, you know,
Yay.
still alive. We get a little glimpse of her, and she senses like somehow knows that Ethan, like, just feeling on the back
That's
of the neck,
not
knows someone's
creepy.
watching her, and
In
turns
a good
around,
way.
sees Ethan, and they just share, a smile as Ethan vanishes into the mist and is being told about a new mission and a new organization known as the Syndicate, which we'll find out more about later.
Ta-da.
So it's interesting because like it's the fact that like Ethan's supposed to be the secret protector, and then like they're like, hi, hello, and woo, and like you're like, anyone can just report that. Wait, what just happened? And like I'm just gonna go hang out with my best friends, and I still love. And you're like, I thought the whole point was the fact that she died so you could protect her because no one
Yeah,
understands that
well,
she's alive. And
yeah,
I was like,
but we had. I mean, but actually, maybe it would have been better if she never saw him. If
I
yeah,
100%
Yeah, I
agree.
agree about that.
yeah. I know, but
One repeat.
I liked. I mean, at least it gave you a sense of closure. Like, all right,
Closure.
they can see
100%
each
closure.
other. You see that. All right, maybe they'd still love each other, but they know they can't be together, so
Yeah.
they have to part.
Instead of them both making googly eyes and waving, and you're like,
Yeah.
are they going to go get dinner? What's happening here?
Well, she's going to a liquor store.
Or actually, that's like a fish market she's going into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so confused. Wasn't he supposed to be staying out of her life to protect this whole situation?
But with that, our movie ends.
Ta-da.
Yay.
All right, so now it's time for our spy fact versus fiction. Jay is our guest. Do you want to go first? Do you have anything?
So in this particular one, I appreciate the fact that, well, I don't know if I appreciate the fact that, but early on, I think it's hilarious that it's very clear that Ethan is wearing dark colors, black/dark blue, versus the enemy wearing clear black, dark, pure white, and very light colors. So when they're running through certain things, and you're like, wearing white feels like it's not the best decision, and it's not like even, but like so, like it was an interesting dichotomy because it's not. So spy fact versus the fiction of it being like it's a little too obvious to a degree. I mean, it's a trope, which is great, and it's very simplistic for us, but at the same time, it's like because they improved upon it in in the next movies, right? Just like,
Mm.
but I also do like the fact that Bogdan never comes back to it, and but I also appreciate the fact that it's like the concept of I protect myself. Like he went back for his informant, protected their identity. There's an arms dealer and all that other stuff, and like the arms dealer never even implicates Bogdan. That's the biggest thing about this movie that I appreciate. The fact that Bogdan is never implicated in anything.
You think we'll see Bogdan come back at some
Oh
point?
gosh, I hope so. Because I thought he did such a good job of being such a quirky
hmm
person, like informant.
hmm
It has to come back at some point. I would really love to see Bogdan come back.
Riding high on that Fast X appearance.
Hell yeah.
All right, Zach, do you have anything?
Actually, yes. So I found a video from Insider.com. Former CIA intelligence officer Andrew Bustamante rates all the Mission Impossible
Oh,
movies
I've
for
seen this
realism.
video. It's
Oh
pretty good.
gosh,
Yeah.
okay.
So he really liked the disguise when he's the general. He says a
Mhm.
simple prosthetic nose and mustache. He likes it because it reduces what can go wrong. Same with not speaking. Why take the chance? The
Mhm.
fake hallway was way too risky and expensive. He said the biggest problem with this is the battery power. You would need a whole suitcase just for the battery.
Not today.
Right, but at the time.
At
At
that
the
time,
time,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Going from the Russian general to a tourist, he said it's called a gap act, but Ethan does it in plain sight,
Oh.
which is very high risk.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He says in real life, you go somewhere private, and then you wouldn't just throw all your stuff
Yeah.
away. You'd
Mhm.
keep it.
Well,
Same with the glove. He wouldn't just toss the glove. He would put it on his belt.
yeah. Okay, let's talk about that stupid glove. Like, you're giving away spy technology to a random miscellaneous. Oh,
Right.
hey, electromagnetic. Yeah.
Exactly. And then when Ethan calls the fake number of the fake insurance company, that's what's known as a backstop number. And what they said is called verbal parole. And then Ethan gives his parole or bona fides. And then when he disposes it of the phone, it's in a way that it can't be retrieved.
So that was good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, he said breaking into the server room is a human-enabled technical operation where you use human skills to enable it. But no one would cut into it in broad daylight. He would get arrested pretty quickly. And that
I
is
mean,
I don't
would
know
they
about
see
that.
him that high up?
That was my question because they were so stupidly high. Because that's one of the highest buildings, and at that point, most people would assume it's a bug or a bird or something. I think it was totally fine. The fact that they cut through the glass, and the glass is a very structural necessity to that point. I think that's the bigger question. I don't think anyone would. But I mean, at the same time, you're watching someone climb up a fully glass window, right? So you're like, who's not in that room going, why am I looking at this guy running up this, climbing up my window? That's the other thing.
All right, Zach, do you have anything else?
That's all for me.
So I've got a couple of things. So AR contact lenses. Seems like science fiction, but actually, in July of 2022, a company called Mojo Vision did their first tests of AR contact lenses. And what they say is that it has a 14,000 pixel per inch micro LED display with a pixel pitch of, which is the distance between adjacent pixels, of 1.8 microns, and it uses these medical grade micro batteries. Somehow, there's not too much information about it, but it seems pretty interesting. But this is from a website called BigThink.com that reported.
Oh yes, yep.
Yeah, so they could be more commonplace sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think overall that technology has been slowly being built more and more and more. Obviously, they've done more heads-up displays with like the tiny like Google Glass stuff, but that they've been slowly trying to figure out how to do AR contact glasses for a hot minute. I think there's a rough approximation of it, but it's not quite that in-depth, much less being able to immediately track and identify people like doing quick scan.
What also I have is, can being underwater protect you from bullets?
Yeah, I figured you would be doing this one.
Welcome to Mythbusters.
It's from a website called ScienceABC.com, which actually specifically calls out this scene. And what they say is that if the bullet is shot from an angle of 30 degrees, then being underwater in the range of 3 to 5 feet can ensure safety from most guns. And they show all the math behind it, and also talk about how they covered it on Mythbusters, which is where I think they got that quote from. So I want to look back at the scene, but I think they're more than 3 to 5 feet below. So even without the bodies, the body with the flare, they would have been okay at that point.
Yeah,
No, they're way below because the whole entire
they're like
car
10 feet
crashed.
under.
So those bullets actually shouldn't even be coming by them. Really, they should already have lost their momentum. I think
They would lose the momentum, but you can kind of see the trail. It would be super slow.
Yeah, but
They
in
basically be
here,
able to bat them out of the water.
when we see it here, the bullets look like they're going full speed, so it's not quite accurate.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah.
Lastly, I've got something on gecko gloves.
Okay.
Because I was going to bring that up again too. Yeah. So go for it.
This is from a website called Engadget.com. Apparently, researchers at Stanford have created a gecko glove, which makes Spider-Man climbing possible, and looks like it's using these microscopic sticky pads, which will distribute the weight. And I believe that it is a rolling motion, just like Benji said, that can used to take off the adhesion.
All right. Wow. Just like in the movie.
Yeah. There's a company, SRI International, has been developing the electroadhesive gloves, which basically they act like a static effect of like rubbing a balloon to create static electricity to make that happen. So that's the other part. And then also NASA has been developing a levitated like mouse or tiny canister using magnets to be able to simulate. For like the
magnet suit.
Magnet suit to be able to travel around. And so like that was an interesting part that I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, but like also the electro gloves are a thing that obviously we just talked about, but like the way they were being used in the show is just, it's a glove. Like it had no like closure. It didn't like suck onto the arms, which annoyed me. So like it would stick and then you'd roll and then your arm would slide out for me personally, unless like you're super sweaty, I guess. And then like the moisture of your sweat and stuff would make that suction ability. That would be kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, like it just made me laugh. Yeah, it just made me laugh. Like he was like boop, bloop, 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 bloop. But like I was like, I don't know about you, but my hands are coming out of those gloves, much less his tiny fingers.
There's no closure. There's no interesting. Huh. All right. Well, do we have anything else for Spy Fact or Suspicion, or can we move on to our favorite quotes?
I don't have anything more.
Yeah, no, I mean the heads-up display nowadays is basic technology.
Oh, what, on the car?
Yeah, so that's basic technology these days. We're already beyond that point. I'm still stuck on the stupid shoes of the climbing. It still angers me.
All right, let's move on to favorite quotes then.
Okay. Jay, as our guest, would you like to go first?
No, I would not like to go first. I'm very curious to what yours
Zach?
are.
Sure. So I'd like to light the fuse.
Yes.
I also it seemed like a good idea a minute ago.
When he's out on the ledge, yeah.
Yeah, one of my least favorite lines is they're driving to Dubai, having a great time. They almost hit a bunch of camels, swerve out of the way, and then Ethan turns and says, "Camels." Like, duh. Whatever. But then a couple of the ones I liked when they're having the conversation with the bad guys in the hotel rooms. Moreau says, "I've killed the best," which reminded me of Wonder Woman saying, "I've killed things from other worlds before." In Batman and Superman. Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, Moreau, you killed the best with your patented technique of walking up to them and then shooting them. Finally, when Ethan said, "Either we do this deal or we all go home in buckets."
So I got a few like that. If the secretary wanted me out of there, it must be pretty bad out here. Talking about, being broken out of prison. From the secretary, tension between the United States and Russia hasn't been this high since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
That's a good one.
Also from Ethan, failure to a terrorist is just a rehearsal for success. And lastly, tying back to what we were talking about before, thinking. I didn't assume they were thinking. I assumed they were shooting at anything they moved. These guys aren't Rhodes Scholars,
That's a good one.
It isn't very much like Ethan to underestimate his enemy, but I guess in this case it worked.
But it's not necessarily underestimating the enemy. He's accurately analyzing them and acting in coordination with that. All right, Jay, what do you got?
I have Vladimir saying, "Our media is no more truthful than yours, American."
It's pretty good.
And then my other one was Jeremy Renner going, "Next time, I get to seduce the rich guy."
I was wondering if one of us going to bring that up.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, come on now.
It's a good
So
line.
sexy.
Yeah, that reminded me of Wash saying, next time we got to go to the crappy town where I'm a hero.
Yeah. That's actually a good point. Yeah.
Thank you. So now it's time for our ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 martinis, 1 being Avengers 1998, 10 being even better than No Time to Die. How would we rate Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol? Jay, as our guest, would you like to go first?
I am a big fan of this. I think last one I said 7.
I can find out if you really. Let's see. You said 8.5.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
Or
no.
3.
Why did I go so high?
Yeah, this is why I don't give out high ratings easily.
Oh, no. Then I'm just going to say a 9.
All right.
Just because it has Jeremy Renner, which I appreciate. There's a whole lot going on. It makes me happy. I appreciate Julia coming back. There's a lot of callbacks. So yeah, let's just say 9. And I'm going to regret this when I come back for the next future episodes of Mission Impossible. But for right now, let's say 9.
You've reached the ceiling.
I still have 9.1 through 10.
I don't know if we allow that. I guess we'll have to start.
You don't control me.
He's going rogue.
Yep.
All right, Zach, let's hear it.
Okay, so up through the first half, I was ready to give it a 9 because straightforward plot, no masks, really good use of gadgets, not a lot of emotional stuff.
I'm sorry, what?
We'll talk. I didn't want to give it away before we get to the movies, but the later movies try to do like Ethan Hunt, feel guilty for your sins, think on them.
You say try, I say succeed, but we'll get to there.
It's not something I like. So it was great, but then here, unfortunately, problems started to crop up. Like the villain sucks. He makes the villain from the tuxedo look good in comparison.
Whoa!
What?
That's a bold claim.
Yeah,
and I love the tuxedo.
Well, he barely even talks to Ethan Hunt until they fight to the death. And I just feel like the movie goes on a little long. Like for me, the kind of climax was the Burj Khalifa stuff, which is in the middle. But these are mostly just nitpicks, so I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Alrighty, very interesting. 8.5. All right, it's higher than you gave 3, and which you gave a 6. 2, you gave a 4. And the first one you gave, where is it? You gave it a 7. Okay.
I think it's a lot better than the first 3.
All right. So I love this film. I think it is great. I think they managed to really balance out the action while also having some character beats in there. And it's even more incredible that knowing what I know about the behind the scenes, there was a lot of it was a troubled production, and they had to bring on multiple writers to try to figure it out. So this is actually Christopher McQuarrie, the director of the next 4 Mission Impossible films after this.
Didn't they have 3 writers, 3-4 sessions
at least? But they brought on McQuarrie as filming was already halfway through to try to fix the ending.
Yep.
So the fact that it works so well with that, and of course the action is amazing. Yeah, that Burj Khalifa scene is so good, and even the car park, everything is firing all cylinders here. And also, you brought back the team aspect. 3 kind of had the team, but it was still mostly Ethan going off on his own. Here, it really felt like everyone had their role. They had their specialty. They had a thing to do, even if Jeremy Renner was just the helper. He had things to do. Yeah, like you said, the scheme they have of doing 2 rooms, that is something they would have done in the show. So bring it all the way back there. Zach, I think you're going to have to memorize a new rating scale because you're going to be saying better than Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, because I'm giving this a 10 martinis.
Wow. All right. So it's a perfect movie. Well, actually, I'm the one who says a 10 out of 10 is a perfect movie. You don't say that.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I think it's 10. It's a 10. It's got to be because like this is, and even just going from here, this is where the franchise really
it
took
ramps up
off into where it is now. Yeah.
Took off into the stratosphere.
I agree. It definitely it brings it back to its roots, which I think is the biggest thing. Like it brings it back to the concept of it's not just one person, it's a whole division of the IMF, but the IMF is also kind of flawed, but also really good in its core, and you have to trust them. So yeah. No, I'm down with the 10. I appreciate the 10. I won't give it the 10, but it's definitely one of my better ones.
Yeah, I mean, 9 and 8. I think this is our highest rated episode.
Collectively highest, I could see that.
Yeah, collectively highest, or even this is also the first time anyone gave someone something a 10 as well.
I hope so.
Oh, and I actually I have to say one thing to add to my review. That I also feel like I connect with this movie even on a more personal level because I think it for me, and this is just personally as in my day job I plan conferences. This almost like their frenetic energy sort of encapsulates what it feels like running a conference because you make all these plans and you are you're trying to think of every eventuality, but of course the restaurant which you had booked. Oh no, they're actually doing a different event and they forgot about you. You have to work a way around. It's not on the same scale of the mask machine failed and you have to do without and figure out a way around. But it feels in the moment, it feels like that. So I've told other people this that all right, you want to know what it feels like being an event planner? Watch this movie. That's the level of all right, improvisation that we have to go through and thinking on our feet and just working to make everything look like it's all running smoothly on the surface, even though we're running around doing all these things.
Sweating and being stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Ethan does not have more white hairs because of all the stress.
Well, you see a few of them in Fallout.
You do, but like by now,
at this point,
should
I've
have.
already got white hairs.
I mean, yeah.
And we know from Collateral, Tom Cruise can rock the Silver Fox look.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty. So Jay, you want to promote anything?
I guess Tuesday Night Gaming podcast that I am with Zach, where we talk about we're a spoiler cast about current shows or movies, depending on what we're doing, and at the same time, I'm also streaming on Twitch. MC Slanty, I'm on all socials for MC Slanty, so enjoy if you like TTRPG. I'm also interpreting a bunch. We just did a Disability Month awareness with Roll D5 and Hero Forge. So yeah, watch some D&D streams.
Very nice. We'll tune in for that. And thank you to the audience for joining us. You can find us on social media at the Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our merch store at redbubble.com. Until next time, I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And we are the Spy-Fi Guys, signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Spy-Fi Guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The theme song from this podcast is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Films, books, and television shows reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.